Ready, give it to go. Terrence, you first. Accio. Good. Bailey.
Accio.
Very good. Luke.
Accio.
Wonderful. Now Gretchen.
Accio.
Excellent. Now all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Accio Hogwarts Radio. This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 237 for March 10th, 2019. Hogwarts Radio is the official podcast for wizarding news from HPA&A, discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the wizarding world. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out wizarding.news. Hello everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter fans worldwide since 2008. I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Gretchen Rush.
Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Radio Public, and other places where podcasts are aggregated. It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button, and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday.
We also invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Don't forget, Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including Into the Common Room, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Sign up today over at patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio. Welcome to episode 237, where you feed your Potter addiction every week with some of the brightest minds, and I'm referring to the panel on this one, in Potter podcasting history.
Who, us?
Who, us? It sounds like Siri. Whenever she doesn't even know what to respond, she's like, who, me? But anyway, it's great to be back this week with everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and tuning in. Now, I was thinking about Horcruxes earlier this week because I was listening to a couple of our older episodes, and it got me thinking. We've discussed almost everything about Horcruxes, right? But we haven't talked about if we made a Horcrux, where would we hide it? So I wanted to kind of get the thoughts from the panel about that today. And this one kind of struck me because it can't be something like, like a grain of sand on a beach. No, you can't do that. It has to be something meaningful, right? Or was that just the way that Tom Riddle did it?
I don't think it has to be something meaningful. I just think it has to be an object. I don't know necessarily that a grain of sand would work, if it would count as an object.
So let's remember that whatever we put the Horcrux into, because the Horcrux is the bit of soul, right? So it has to be put into something, and that something is just a container for it. So I don't think there's like a requirement of how big it has to be, but it does have to make sense. Like you said, it just can't be something and then you just throw it at the bottom of the ocean or something like that.
Well, and you want it to be easy enough to find. So, like, say you could make a grain of sand your Horcrux. Imagine how difficult that would be once you needed it to be like, hey, I need you to go find this thing for me. And it's literally a piece of hay in a haystack.
I think we can all agree that a grain of sand should be nixed. I think that's probably not what we would pick.
What would you pick, Gretchen?
I really don't know, because that's not the question that was originally proposed to me. So I haven't thought about it at all. But now that we're talking about it, I like the idea of it being something from your past. I'm going to see Captain Marvel this weekend, so I'm thinking about like nostalgia and like, 90s and stuff like that. So the first thing, and we were talking about the Jonas Brothers and their recent resurgence, which is a blessing to us all. So I was thinking about like, what things did I own when I was a child that I would put my soul into, and maybe metaphorically at the time did carry my soul. So my first thought was hit clips. I don't know if you guys are familiar with hit clips. If you're not familiar, I will describe it and you will say, why did that exist? It was a little device where you could plug in like almost like a little SD card type thing, and it would play one song. And that was it. And it was very expensive for what it was. Now we have MP3 players, came out shortly after that, and the hit clips died. But I had a little jukebox hit clips with NSYNC songs So I think that's what I would put my soul into. I've decided.
Ooh, that's very good. Would you hide it like any particular place, like in a storage unit or at the bottom of a bin or something like that? In a safe?
I would hide it. I would put it in a weighted box and hide it at the bottom of the ocean.
Okay.
Then you'd know where it was.
Bailey, what about you? If you made it, what would you put it into, and then where would you hide it?
Oh man, I'm trying to think of what I would put it into, I think is the hardest. And I mean, just looking around me at what I have a lot of, I think I would put it into one of my Funko Pops and then just try and hide it in my collection and hope that no one figured it out because there's so many of them.
That's brilliant. I love that because that reminds me of Buffy episode when the witch goes in the cheerleader statue and then she lives at the school in the statue and everyone's like, whoa, she's gone. But actually she's in the statue. So like
She's right in front of you.
She's right in front of you. So part of your soul lives in one of these Funkos and no one will ever know which one. It's kind of creepy and I love it.
Oh, well, mine, I would say that if I made a Horcrux, which I kind of feel like I do every week here at Hogwarts Radio, and I put a little bit of my soul into this show, and I would hide it online in some server. That way you could physically never retrieve the actual thing. I don't know. No, for me, if it were to be something from my childhood, I don't know, maybe it would be like a stuffed animal or something like that, that I was attached to at that particular time, and I would, kind of right in line with Bailey, just keep it with the collection that it's with now, I suppose, and keep it where it is. I mean, that's if we're going the sentimental route, if not, oh yeah, I'm gonna put it in like the Hope Diamond and like hope that nobody actually gets it, or I'm gonna go and bury it in the middle of the Sahara Desert or something like that.
Yeah, my only concern with like keeping it in a collection of things would be like I imagine that a Horcrux gives off some kind of like magical energy, and you would be able to feel it, so it wouldn't be very well hidden.
While that's true, yeah, because like dark magic does leave this kind of like trace, right? Like you can not like you know that it's there. You don't know necessarily what it is, but you get that funny feeling of the presence is there. So it's a good point.
Might not be a good hiding place to keep it in your house.
But Bailey, what if you split your soul into how many Funkos do you own? 40?
I can't kill that many people, and it's way more than 40.
You just put a tiny bit of your soul. Maybe you don't have to kill everyone.
Every
You
single
just like
Funko.
Yeah, you just maim a lot of people and put a little bit of your soul in every Funko, and then you will never die. I think.
I could get behind the maiming. I can't kill him, but I could kill him.
Oh my goodness, that went real disturbing really fast.
I think we've got a plan. It's solid.
Watch out, Luke.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, bud. I don't even know how to continue after that one. I'm so sorry.
In happier news, we have some shout outs to give.
That's right, we sure do. So there's this other podcast that we ran across the other day. By happenstance, they responded to a tweet of ours. And I was like, this is kind of different. It's called Have a Biscuit Potter, and it's a podcast, a Harry Potter podcast. It is another reread podcast with a twist. They're completely, unashamedly in love with Professor McGonagall. Now, each episode is about 15 to 18 minutes long, and it's great for a quick binge if you need to. It took me about an hour and 15 minutes to go through all 5 episodes they had right now. But if you want to go check them out, please go check them out on iTunes. It's so fun to listen to, and it isn't an explicit podcast, but like I said, 15 to 18 minutes isn't too long at all. Another shout out we wanted to give is to Accio Politics. Gretchen, of course, guest hosted on that podcast a few weeks ago, so we highly encourage you to listen to it. And you know what? I found out like a couple of months ago that Adri and I live in the same city, so we're going to have to get together and record a podcast very, very soon since we're both so close to each other. But Gretchen, talk to us a little bit about what you guys discussed over there. on that episode?
Yeah, we talked about the politics of labor, and we were focused on an early chapter in in Order of the Phoenix, when Hermione discovers that there are house elves working at Hogwarts. So we kind of talked about invisible labor, and we had a blast. I had such a good time talking with her, so I highly recommend you making the time to get together and record a show.
Now, their show is strictly political, and they find political themes within the Harry Potter series and discuss that. Is that right?
It is, but it's kind of more broad. Like, obviously, labor can go either way. We talked a lot about, like, what exactly are you seeing with labor, and what aren't you seeing with labor, and why does Hermione care so much about the house elves but nobody else really seems to notice? So it's really cool because she picks a different theme out of each chapter of the books and then delves deeper into that. So it's definitely political in the sense of, like, being aware and knowledgeable and, you know, quote unquote politically correct. I think it's a lot about that. But it's not about, like, you know, voting or things like that. It's really the politics of what it means to be a person and to be a citizen and to be a caring and conscious adult.
Very awesome. Again, check out Accio Politics over on iTunes or really anywhere that you get your podcasts. All right, moving on to an outpost that we received from a listener. This one comes from Michael Raven Smythe. That's Smythe, not Smith. Anybody get that Mrs. Doubtfire reference? No, it's like, it's Smythe, not Smith, dearie. Never mind.
I was way too young to remember that when I watched it.
Yeah, I haven't seen that in a while. I remember loving it, though. That's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Michael says, hey guys, big fan of the show. I just had to tell you, and maybe you hear this a lot, every time I hear Gretcher's voice in the pod, I just can't help think of Pam from The Office. Her voice is a complete duplicate of her. It's uncanny, really. That's all I got. Hashtag Ravenclaw forever. Now, we talked about this in our Slack chat, but Gretchen, this isn't the first time you've gotten this kind of a compliment, right?
I will tell you, I've never heard this in real life, anyone I've encountered in real life, but this is, I believe, the second time I've heard this in relation to the podcast. So it must be something about my podcasting voice, or maybe the fact that you can't see my appearance, because I will tell you, I don't think I look anything like Jenna Fisher. So this must just be a podcasting thing. But yeah, I have heard this before, and I am flattered. I do like Pam Beesly sometimes.
All right, so I have a couple of clips of Pam pulled up here, and we're gonna compare her voice and Gretchen's right now.
We'll have Gretchen repeat what she says.
Yeah, this is a game. I like it.
This is our receptionist, Pam. Pam Beesly. Pam has been with us for forever, right, Pam?
Well, I don't know.
If you think she's cute now, you should have seen her a couple of years ago.
What?
Jim Halpert.
Hey.
Hey, New York. Happy Halloween.
Thanks. My costume's getting a lot of attention. So apparently no one dresses up for Halloween here. I wish I'd known that before I used grease paint for my mustache. And I can't even take off my hat because then I'm Hitler.
Oh, that was perfect. Okay, so I can kind of hear it. I can kind of see what they mean whenever they say that you sound like Pam.
I'll take it.
Okay. All right. So Pam, what's in the news?
Pam loves the news.
Pam
She's
loves the
fan.
news. Yes. We've got some rumors flying about, especially with Emma Watson, don't we?
We do have some rumors, and I'm very intrigued to hear what everybody thinks. So Emma Watson is reportedly at the list of a top of actresses who are being considered for a role to act alongside Scarlett Johansson in the as-yet untitled Black Widow movie. The role in question has been described as a female Bond and originally called for an actress in the 30 to 39 range who can speak multiple languages. So what do you think of Emma Watson maybe being a female Bond character in the Black Widow movie?
I don't even know about a female Bond, but this made me think about, like, a bad character, a villain, and I think Emma Watson would have so much fun playing a villain, and I would love to see that. So even if it's not specifically for this Black Widow movie, that it's a villainous character, I really want to see Emma play that type of role now.
I really think it'd be totally badass. But again, would she be playing a villain trying to take Natasha Romanoff out? Because I wouldn't see that going very, very well for her. No, I look, while I'm excited for Emma to kind of branch out to these different roles, I don't know if the Marvel universe would be the role for her.
Have we seen her do anything action?
I haven't. Well, see, that's the thing. I haven't seen the range of her acting. I mean, we've seen things like maybe Ballet Shoes, Beauty and the Beast.
That was the last thing I saw her in, and I did not think that was good.
What, Beauty and the Beast? Beauty and the Beast? You didn't like it?
No.
What?
No, that was awful.
Controversial opinion alert.
That was painful. That was painful to watch. Oh my gosh.
Look, I'm just worried about the range of her acting.
Yeah.
That's my only thing. Yeah, it'd be nice to have Emma Watson star alongside Scarlett Johansson, but I don't know if that would be the right role for her. Even though we don't have details on what it is yet, it's very action-filled, very heavy on drama, very involved, and I don't see Emma playing that type of a role.
Yeah, I can't really see it either, and I'm worried that Scarlett Johansson, she is excellent as Black Widow, and she really is like a large character, and she brings a lot to it. And I can't wait for her to have her own movie. So I'm worried that Emma being the co-star of that, she might just get overshadowed by her.
I could definitely see that happening.
Are you talking about Scarlett being overshadowed by Emma?
No.
No, the other way around.
Yeah.
Well, see, I mean, she would only be considered for like a co-lead and not the female lead. But
that's a co-lead. That's like, she's still going to have she would have a large role in this movie, and I can't picture that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I wonder who else is supposedly on this list.
That's a good question.
So we posted a poll over on Patreon a couple hours ago, and it looks like it's split right now 50-50. So people are really having a hard time deciding whether or not this is going to be the right role for Emma or not. So I think that's really kind of how we feel. Oh, we just got another vote. So it looks like the majority of people are saying yes, that Emma would be a good fit for the MCU. But I don't know. I definitely want to see Emma become a more dynamic actress. But jumping into something this big is just really not a smart move for her yet. Maybe in the future.
What's interesting is that the original call for the role was asking for someone in the 30 to 39 range, but I found the other people who were on the short list, and they're all in their 20s. And I think they're both younger than Emma, the other two women who are up for it. So apparently Alice Englert, who was in Beautiful Creatures, she is also up for the role. And I'm not sure how you say this woman's last name. I think it's Pugh, Florence Pugh, or Poog? Pew? Pleh? Florence Pleh?
Probably Pew based off of your other pronunciation.
Probably Pleh?
I would go with that.
Florence?
Yeah, Pew.
Pleh. But she, the Florence, I will call her affectionately, we're close. She is best known for appearing in The Falling, Lady Macbeth, Outlaw King, and most recently Fighting with My Family, which is in theaters right now. So she is also in her early 20s. So this role seems to have changed from being an older woman, similar. I mean, Scarlett Johansson is in her 30s, correct?
Yeah, she looked, I mean, forgive me for saying this, and I don't mean this in a negative light at all, but she did look like she was aging in the last Avengers movie. Maybe it was the blonde hair, because she went from red to blonde, but either that or, hey, maybe it's been like, it has been 10 years since she's been in the MCU, so...
Well, and imagine all of the stress that she's gone through.
It's very true, yeah.
Yeah, but either way, so she is going to be most likely older than whoever is cast in this role, which is not what they originally envisioned. So I'm wondering if maybe they're taking it a different way. Both of these women also look very similar to Emma. Alice Englert is Australian and Florence is British, and they're both, light brown hair, Caucasian women. So I don't know. I guess Emma is what they're looking for, So if it's between her and these other two who I don't really know, why not? I guess we'll have to see what happens.
So as we've been talking about this, we've gotten a few more votes on Patreon, and it seems like like I said, the majority is still yes. So I don't know. Maybe it's just people more excited to see Emma in this kind of a role. Maybe they feel like it would be good for her. Maybe they're just excited to see Emma back on the big screen, or like in this big of a universe, to see her included in something as expansive as the Marvel universe. I don't know, but very interesting.
Yeah.
We'll keep you guys updated with this. This is going to be interesting to see which way this goes.
Yeah, I hope we learn somewhat soon and don't have to wait a while for this, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So our next bit of news is another game update. Asmodee UK has announced the launch of Harry Potter Dabble. It will be coming out summer 2019. If you are in America, you may not know what Dabble is because we have it in a different name. Our game is called Spot It, but it's the same game. Are you guys familiar with Spot It?
No, I thought this was a Dobby typo.
I'm going to have to dabble in the Dobble here. What is it?
Dabble. So Spot It, it's super simple. So you've got like circular little cards with a bunch of images and pictures and like symbols on it. And then it's kind of like Slapjack. So you have one in front of you and then there's one out in the center. And you're trying to be the first person to match the one in the center to the one in your hand. And then you get it. So you're trying to collect as many cards as you can. And then when the deck runs out, the game's over and whoever has the most wins. So this is super cute. Like the Harry Potter images look adorable. I love regular Spot It. So I'm really excited to have, I mean, if it does come to America, which I'm hoping it does, because right now they've only announced the UK launch, but I'm pretty excited to get it.
Well, that's neat.
Alex will be too. So this news is for Alex.
It definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm going to have to dabble in the Dobble here and see what this is all about, because it does sound pretty cool.
Dabble in the Dobble. All right, we have a couple feel-good pieces here to end the news for the week. So the first one is about a Niffler running loose in London. Last week, a family's pesky Niffler from Warner Brothers Studio Tour London was left behind en route from King's Cross to York. The loss of the Niffler companion brought, in the words of the mother, sadness in the house because of the distress that ensued. The family turned to Twitter to get the attention of London North Eastern Railway, and luckily a rail firm discovered the creature on its own and, knowing something was wrong, contacted the customer services team and the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. The email received by the family is as follows. Bailey, will you read that email for us?
Absolutely. Thanks very much for getting in touch with us regarding your recent journey from King's Cross to York. We were sorry to hear that a member of your party was left behind on the train and can appreciate that this caused some concern. It seems your Niffler has been living up to his mischievous reputation, and since you last reported seeing him, he's been on an adventure up and down our route in search of trinkets. Thankfully, he was captured by one of our experienced magical animal handlers, Emma. Work is slow in the world of magical law enforcement and beast conservation, so she also works as one of our onboard customer experience hosts. After reports of a disturbance on board, Emma caught your Niffler trying to steal teaspoons from the kitchen and managed to keep him in her handbag until the train reached Leeds. He's now safe and well with the team at our York station. If you're able to pop in and collect him, I'm sure he's very much looking forward to being reunited. For reference, I've attached a wanted mugshot we released shortly after his capture. If there's anything else we can do to help you with, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us or the Ministry for Magic by Owl. Yours sincerely, Jack Collier, Customer Services Team, Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, London North Eastern Railway.
So I thought that was a super cute story. That comes to us from Montana MuggleNet.
I'm confused. I really am.
So this family bought a Niffler stuffed toy and forgot it on the train, and one of the train employees found it, and they worked really hard to reunite the Niffler with the family and wrote them a really cute themed customer service letter.
That is adorable.
I love that they went the extra mile.
Yeah, that I thought this was like we're seeing a preview of the new Wizards Unite game or something.
It totally sounds like that.
It really does, doesn't it? Well, this makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
It's really cute. So
Yeah.
shout out to them for their efforts, and I'm happy the family is reunited with their beloved Niffler.
Same here.
Can't let them get too far.
No, you got to keep an eye on those pesky
Gotta
Nifflers.
chase the Niffler.
And our last bit of news is about a MIT student named Natalia Kozmina. She is a postdoctoral fellow with the MIT Media Lab, and she developed a system of 14 non-invasive electrodes that capture brain activity and use electroencephalography. I can't believe I said that right. Based brain-computer interfaces to detect what the wearer is imagining. Basically, she made the Sorting Hat. And it's incredible. She created an algorithm and software that make magic happen. And she took her inspiration from Pottermore's quiz. So basically how it works is she puts these brain electrodes on your head, and she bought a prop sorting hat to go on top of the brain electrodes. So you're putting on a sorting hat. And then she shows images featuring 2 choices to the subject and asks them to think about the object of their choosing. She says the frequencies and activity in the brain that result when a person is visualizing a specific item can be registered, and the computer proceeds to use what you're imagining to determine your house. This is a quote from her. The hat will tell you, oh, you are Gryffindor. It will not only tell you the house, but what you are actually thinking about. And you don't need to pronounce a single word. You just need to be very focused. So you put the hat in your head, you go through the little Pottermore quiz in your brain, and then the hat tells you what house you are.
I wonder if it takes your choice into consideration.
I think she said it does.
Really? That is so cool.
Yeah.
So it accounts for hat stalls.
I think so.
So you can put it on your head and go, not Slytherin, and it goes, all right, not Slytherin, you're in Hufflepuff then, or something like that.
I love it. I think it's so cool. And she said that she's using it to boost people's confidence and help students feel confident in who they are in their houses and stuff, which is so great.
That is really neat. And I could see this having huge advantages in the medical community someday, because it can, this just doesn't have to be about Harry Potter. If she can translate it into the medical community, I mean, it can help with communication, it can help with movement, it can help with what maybe people that have had traumatic brain injuries, what they're thinking or where the disconnect is. I see a huge potential for this piece of technology here.
It's very cool. And that article comes to us from Brie at MuggleNet. So we thank her for that. I love it.
Awesome.
And that is it for the news.
Okie doke. Well, let's get to our one announcement this week. And last week, we released our 5th Time Turner Thursday episode. And I don't know about you guys, but I am having a lot of fun revisiting some of our older episodes. And we do release them once every 2 weeks. So our next one will be coming up Thursday, I believe the 14th or 15th, right around there. And that'll feature another Hogwarts Radio episode from the past. So it's a fun way for you guys to revisit older episodes and to get in on the fun with what we might have been talking about at that particular time. We've got a lot of episodes over the 11 years we've been doing this podcast, so it's just a fun thing for us to share with you guys. Okay, let's move on to our discussion this week and just a few questions we had. The first one is, we know there are unforgivable curses, right? Well, what about unforgivable potions? So what I wanted to do was just pick one of each, because there's a lot of bad potions out there. There's also a lot of very good potions. There's a lot of bad potions, and let's discuss why we think that particular potion should be unforgivable. So I guess I'll go ahead and kick it off here. I think Felix Felicis should be unforgivable. To have something, no matter what it is, go your way or in your favor is quite dangerous. What if you were on trial for a serious crime and you took the potion beforehand? You could be potentially let off the hook for that crime, given the way that the potion works. So what do you guys think about that? Felix Felicis, unforgivable or no?
I think that maybe no, because I feel like luck can only get you so far. It's not actually swaying people. It's not the force or brainwashing, like you're not doing Jedi mind tricks. You're just having a little bit more luck than usual. Like maybe you catch a green light, or maybe you catch the door before it closes and locks. Like, so I feel like with something like a trial, I think getting lucky might be that it's short and not anything about this sentencing, Like, I can't imagine that. I think there's a distinction between luck and actual changing your fate. What do you think, Bailey?
Well, and especially like with the trial example, would the luck be you want to take the Felix when they're doing the jury selection so that you get lucky to have a jury that's more sympathetic to you? Or is it you want to take it right before the verdict is read? So I think it's very subjective as to what this scenario would be. But I could see how it definitely needs some kind of regulation.
That's what I'd like to know. Are there any regulations on potions at all?
It doesn't seem like it from what we've gotten via story.
Because there's regulations on spells, but nothing for potions. And I guess they might take that in, like, how the difficulty of creating one of these potions is. They might take that into consideration, figuring that somebody, if they want to create like Dread of the Living Death or something like that, well, it's a difficult potion to make and not everybody does it right. So they're more of a danger to themselves than they are anybody else.
Right, because the book with the ingredients to make polyjuice was in the restricted section, but it wasn't illegal for her to make that, correct?
I think it was against school policy, but I don't think illegal in the magical community. No, not at all.
Well, that's a good segue for what my potion is, because I think that polyjuice potion should be the unforgivable potion, if you will, just because there's no way to say, and we see this very clearly, that you're getting permission from these people to turn into them.
Very true. In fact, with the exception of the 7 Potters, that is the only form of consent we see in the series with the use of Polyjuice potion. I agree. I could see, and heck, we've already seen how dangerous this is, right? For again, not being regulated. I think the fact that you are potentially messing with somebody's life, the way that you are whenever you take this potion, it should be considered an unforgivable potion.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't, besides like the 7 Potters when they're protecting Harry, that's a very pure intention. But I can't think of any other time where you would need to turn into someone else and like that would be an acceptable moral choice. Because every other time we've seen it, it's not.
Even when we see Newt taking it to turn into Theseus briefly, it's still all under the guise of trickery. There's no good reason besides the 7 Potters that we've ever seen for needing to take Polyjuice potion.
Okay, so what about finding answers about the heir of Slytherin? Was that a good use of the potion or not from Ron and Harry?
I don't think it got them any further than they would have gotten without it.
No, they didn't learn anything from that. That was like useless. That was just to show that Hermione is smart and can do a good spell, and then to like teach the reader about Polyjuice.
Well,
so that when it comes up later in book 4, you know what it is.
Well, okay, but they did learn. To be fair, whenever they were in the common room, the Slytherin common room, they did learn that Malfoy wasn't the heir of Slytherin. He didn't know who opened up the Chamber secrets, but they did find out new information about that. So yeah, I would say it was
for months
useful.
of effort, they found out that it wasn't Draco, which no one...
They probably could have just figured out by asking, quite honestly.
Okay, I'll concede. That'd be a good debate question.
All right, well, we can talk about mine now. Mine was Immortentia, for pretty similar reasons to Bailey's, because there's no consent there. We saw it most recently in Crimes of Grindelwald. I don't know that it was confirmed that Queenie was using that, but she had him under some sort of love spell, so I'll use it as my example anyway. but you are using it to get someone to fall in love with you, and you have to continue to give it to them to make that person stay in love with you.
Mhm.
It's manipulative, and it's not real love. It's just like strong obsession. And if you do that, I will say it, you're not a good person. So
Mhm.
I don't think you should be allowed to do that.
No, agreed.
Well, and clearly we see Amortentia going wrong when Romilda gives Harry the doctored chocolates and Ron eats them. So there's definitely the risk of error of not giving it to your intended victim.
Yeah, which is crazy to think like, oh, I'm trying to drug him. Whoops, I drugged the wrong person. Like, how can you think that in your brain and be like, no, I'm fine?
There's nothing wrong with the situation.
Because you're not thinking at that time. But I mean, I think I really think, I mean, we've saw a lot of misuses of Amortentia in this series, most notably someone being conceived under the Amortentia potion, which was Tom Riddle. Because of Tom Riddle Sr. not knowing, he wasn't in his right mind, Merope said, I'm just going to give this to him because of my own selfish reasons. We saw a little bit of that, you know, like you guys just mentioned with Queenie and Jacob. But, I mean, what makes it so unforgivable is that you're affecting somebody's free will. And anytime that you're doing that and allowing that person to not be able to make their own sound decisions, it should be considered unforgivable, no matter what potion it is.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Is there any other potions that you guys can think of? Like, what about Veritasiera? I mean, because that's affecting somebody's free will as well, but you're basically using that to expose the truth for your own gain, whether it's whether it's for like law enforcement kind of reasons, or if you're just seeking the truth. Like, let's say you're in a relationship and somebody lied to you about eating the last slice of chocolate cake or something like that. So you slip a little Veritasium into their coffee and be like, oh yeah, I totally ate that in the fridge whenever you were at work or something like that, you know?
Yeah, so your two examples just reminded me of two different Black Mirror episodes. So there's the one where you can rewind everything in your brain and watch it again, and they use that as like a way to kind of throw things into each other's faces, the two people in the relationship, as like, no, you definitely said that, like, watch, I'll show you, like, we can replay it literally. And then the second one is similar. It's like law enforcement can go into your brain and watch your memories, and they collect that evidence to like support their cases. So then this woman like goes around killing people to try to stop them from giving her up. That was a crazy one. I did not like that one. But anyway, so I think the point that I'm making is I like Black Mirror, and I think that you're exactly right, because if we know anything about Black Mirror, it's that the things that they show us are not things that we want to happen. So I think that Veritasium is something that we maybe should not allow, because unless you've agreed to take it, you shouldn't be put in a position where you are forced to reveal the truth no matter what.
I plead the fifth. Well, too bad.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And this, I was looking at potions to think about for this, and it makes me wonder, even with like the draft of Living Death, what kind of regulation just surrounds normal potions that clearly they're having students brew?
Yeah, I mean, and what do they do with the leftover potions? Is there like a biohazard cleanup? Is there like a, I mean, do they just like accuate?
They just wave their wand and it goes away.
Oh, much like the poo, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Well, it clears that up real fast. Okay, I can't really think of any other potions. We would love to hear from some of our listeners on this. If you think of a potion that you saw in the series that that should be unforgivable, let us know. We'll be happy to discuss that on the show. So our next question comes from Reddit, and this was an interesting topic. And this person posed the question, what was it like to be a Harry Potter reader in the early 2000s? So that's whenever most of us got into the series. And guys, if you think about that, like think about the year that you got into it and what you were doing and how long ago that actually was. For me, it's been about 16 years. That's it's a little less than half of my life, but I mean, I can safely say I've been talking about Harry Potter for just as long. So yeah, I mean, it was for me. It was purely magical. Of course, I picked up the copy of Sorcerer's Stone a week after I graduated high school. My mom had picked it up about a year before, and she read through it, and she was actually the first in the family to do it, and encouraged me to read it. She said, "Your cousin's like this." I really wasn't a big reader. It had to really pique my interest, and I didn't pick the book up or anything like that. And it wasn't until I saw the first movie, maybe it was the visualization that I needed, that I was hooked. And I consumed as much Potter content as I could on the official.com website. I began role-playing on the Harry Potter Dialogue Center message boards. And for those of you that are out there that kind of did the same, how many of you guys actually remember 1 million for POA? If you guys get that, please let me know. So, I mean, I kind of attribute all that to forming like more of a connection with the characters and with the series. And it just kind of made my anticipation for the upcoming books that were still coming out absolutely unreal. It was kind of a surreal experience being a Harry Potter reader in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think it was the same year, Terrence, that I found it, because it was 16 years ago. And I remember very vividly finishing the first book and being like, I'm so glad that there are more, because you just knew. I have always loved reading. I've been a huge reader my whole life. And when you find like a special series, you kind of know. So I remember finishing that first book and being like, there are more of these incredible books. Like, I feel so happy. I feel so like just in love with this series and these characters and this writing. I love this writing. I love this style. I'll read anything by this woman. Little did I know that is not true. I have not read her other books. But I just remember being like, I never want this series to end. And then, however many years later, you get to that last book and you're like, oh, I can't finish it yet. I have to finish it, but I can't finish it. And you're fighting those feelings. But during that first book that you're in, it's just like, it's kind of indescribable, the feeling of just like joy and peace when you're reading that first book. Especially being the age that Harry was. I was 11 when I started the book. So knowing like, hey, if Harry can have super cool things happen to him, maybe super cool things can happen to me. Maybe in 16 years, I'll be hosting a Harry Potter podcast, like cool things can happen to normal
Stranger
people.
things have happened.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, I still lived under the staircase. Nothing was magical. I'm just kidding. So kidding.
Oh my goodness. So this blows my mind, but believe it or not, I started reading Harry Potter before either of you did. I was 6 years old and read it in 2001. My first grade teacher had recommended it to me, just based off of, people were reading things, and I was far more advanced in my class than most people were, so she was having me read separate things besides what everyone else was. And Harry Potter was one of those books that she recommended, and oh my goodness, I just remember being in love with it from the moment I first picked up the book, and being so happy that there were more books that were going to be released, like Gretchen said, and trying so hard, despite how slow of a reader I was as a 6-year-old, to try and make it through so that by the time Order of the Phoenix was the next book that was coming out, I was going to have been caught up.
You were probably a faster reader at 6 years old than I was at 19 years old. Because or actually 17 is whenever I first picked up the books. But what do you guys feel, or do you guys remember about having to wait for the next book to come out? What were the emotions running through your minds?
Terrible. It always felt like the longest wait. And then it seemed like for months and months leading up to out, there would be so much hype. And then that instant gratification of today is release day. I'm picking it up. Oh crap, I just finished it. What do I do now until the next one comes out?
I've got 2 years? What? Little did we know this fully prepared us for the Avengers movies coming out in like a decade
And the final
later.
season of Game of Thrones.
And the final season. So we can wait, guys. We know we can wait. We've done it before.
I've been training all my life for this.
I think that's what kind of kept it going for me was just was like the message board stuff, really. I mean, consuming as much content and creating as much content and sharing it with the people that like the same thing as me. I had never experienced something like that on that big of a scale before, especially with people all around the world. You know, as kids, you were taught never go into chat rooms. You know, there's old men that want to send pictures of their junk to you and all that other stuff. And it's like, well, what if you had that safe space like the HarryPotter.com, which was heavily moderated by host witches and host wizards? That was a place where you could just like hang out with other Harry Potter fans. And that was like kind of my first home. So it helped a lot with the anticipation, the waiting between books.
It's so funny that you mentioned, the never going into chat rooms and whatnot, because I was so young when I read Harry Potter for the first time. So to be quite honest, I never really even delved into fandom and the online aspect of it until after the Deathly Hallows Part 2 movie came out.
That's probably okay, because I had a couple of things spoiled for me, which is crazy to think about because I was super on top of it. So how do people already know that Snape dies? That got spoiled for me in a chat. And it was it was literally an hour before I was leaving to pick up the book. I was on the forums. I'm I'm just going to look real quick. I'm just going to read a couple things. It'll be fine. And then one was Snape dies. And I was no.
This can't be true.
No, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. It's fine. And then went and picked up the book and read it and was oh, yeah, Snape does die. Yep, it's fine. It's cool.
Darn, they were right.
They were right. It's fine. I also, this is not related at all, but I also read in a chat, in a forum, that Bella in Twilight was going to name her baby Renesmee. And I said, that's a total lie because that is not going to happen. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And that was true too. So I guess believe the stuff that you read on forums. I don't know. That's my advice.
So I think the lesson Gretchen should learn from this is never go on forums before a big release of anything. Gretchen,
or until you've consumed whatever's releasing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, don't, we've got Game of Thrones coming up, so don't go on any message boards or forums or chat rooms or, well, I don't think any of those exist anymore, but still, I mean.
Yeah, the forums.
Don't go on the YouTubes.
Don't go on the YouTubes or the chat snaps or. You stay off of the Twitters. It's always fun to take a trip down memory lane with, just kind of remembering where we came from and how far we've come with this series. I had no idea in the early 2000s, whenever I was reading this series, one, how much it would impact my life. Two, how consumed I would be with it. And three, I had no idea that I would be hosting a Harry Potter podcast running for about 11 years now. So that's just kind of it all blows my mind whenever I start thinking about it.
My mind is especially blown thinking about the fact that I read Harry Potter 18 years ago, and that's 75% of my life.
I know, and for some of our hosts that we have on the show, well, 17 years is 98% of their lives, so... So I've been reading Harry Potter since you are knee high to a grasshopper, literally, right?
Since before you were a thought.
That's so funny. It's like, that it's split into like people who were alive when 9/11 happened and people who weren't yet alive.
Oh my
It's like
God.
people who were alive when Harry Potter was still coming out and people who weren't. It's very different times.
It blows my
Yeah.
mind thinking about that 9/11 stuff because I've got at my Muggle job, I've got people that report to me, and they're pretty young, so they were born like in like 98, 99, and I'm like, oh my God, like you guys don't even remember 9/11 happening at all. Like that's something that wasn't even a thought in your mind whenever you were like 2 years old or something. I bet you can't even remember that particular day. And they're like, no, all we know is what we read in, the history books and stuff like that.
Exactly. It's taught like history now. And those of us who are old enough are like, yeah, but we were there. Like that's what our parents thought about like Vietnam and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Not our parents, but a little older.
Sure.
Not my parents. My parents are young.
My
okay.
my parents. Oh, I just aged myself again. Look at that. All right, guys. Well, that does wrap up our questions for the week. Let's go ahead and get to Avada Kedavra, Amortentia Imperio. This is the Wizarding World's version of Screw, Marry, Kill. This first one is going to go to Bailey. Bailey, your three are a Kelpie, a Niffler, and Victor Crumb.
A Kelpie, a Niffler, and Victor Crumb. I'm going to Avada Kedavra the Kelpie because those things sound a little bit dangerous and I don't want to have to worry about taming one. I'm going to Imperio the Niffler, and I really feel like the Imperio curse is just entirely unnecessary because I would have it go get jewels for me and just do what it does best. And that leaves Victor Crumb for Amortentia, and that's only because he's the only human.
I just realized I screwed this order up. I was supposed to actually give that to Gretchen.
Yeah, I was offended.
I was wondering, and I was just rolling with it.
And I probably threw you guys off with yours, but, hey, I threw a Niffler into the machine here, and you just kind of roll with it. Yes.
Yep.
So sorry.
So a Niffler, a Kelpie, and Victor Crumb walk into a bar.
Yeah, right? It's a good setup.
The Niffler takes everything.
Right. Well, in that case, Gretchen, are you ready for yours?
I'm ready, yes.
Okay, a werewolf, a vampire, and a hag.
Oh, that sounds like a joke setup too.
Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh. Now I'm gonna show a little ignorance here. A hag is not a witch. What is a hag?
To be quite honest,
You don't know
I don't
either.
know.
Okay.
I was just going with the Gilderoy Lockhart book titles.
What's that one? Hags in Honduras?
Hags and
Holidays
Hinky
with
Punks.
hags.
Holidays with hags. That's good.
That sounds like-
Okay, well, I will maybe Avada Kedavra the hag then, since I don't know what she is. I'll just get rid of her. I'll Amortentia the werewolf, because they're human most of the time. And they're probably nice if they're not like what's his face, so should be fine. And then I'll Imperio. Was it a vampire? Was that my other option?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll get them to like solve crime for me or something. Whatever his vampires do. Right? That's what vampires do.
Though vampires
Sparkle in
like
the sunshine, Gretchen.
vampires are like, I want to suck your blood.
No, that's Count Chocula.
He's a vampire.
Yeah, but he's cereal.
Suck your chocolate blood.
I want to suck your chocolate blood.
If he could get me chocolate, I would pick him. That would be great.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, all right. Since we were talking about book 6, you're gonna get some book 6 people. Terrence,
All
you ready?
right. Yeah, let's do it.
Your choices are the beautiful Romilda Vane, sadly cut from the film, the even more beautiful Horace Slughorn, or the slightly less beautiful Lavender Brown. Just kidding. She's beautiful too.
So I'm going to have to Avada Kedavra, Romilda Vane.
Good choice.
Yes. Yeah, she, she was cut from the film, so she's cut from my list.
Cut from my life. Cut out.
Cut it out, yep. Ghosted. Shh. By the way, that's the official sound of being ghosted is shh. That. Anyway. I would Amortentia Lavender Brown, because she looks like she needs a little bit of love in her life. If she's still alive, that is. J.K. Rowling, if you're listening, please confirm if Lavender Brown is dead or alive. But she does need a little bit of love. She went through a very traumatic experience during the Battle of Hogwarts, to where she might be a werewolf, so that'll be fun. And then I'm going to Imperio Slughorn to do my bidding, because he is he's a good potions master, I think. And it's always good to have somebody make the potions, because I suck at making potions. To have them make those unforgivable potions so I can use them at will. I'm rubbing my hands together.
Does that mean you're also not good at making cocktails?
One step at a time here,
Okay, so our Hogwarts radio party will not be at Terrence's house.
Unless he's got Slughorn.
Yeah. I'll just tell Jim Broadbent to come on over.
Ooh, please do.
Jim, we're having a party. You're invited.
Gotta come.
Well, we can make it a slug party.
Slug Club.
Slug Club.
And then whenever he comes in, I'll be like, good to see you all in B. Anyway. Well, fun stuff. If you guys would like us to, if you want to play along with us at home, you sure can. You can tweet us your three and to which host you want to answer, and we'll be happy to play along with you on Twitter or on Facebook, on any of our social outlets.
Send me your weirdest scenarios.
Challenge accepted. Now, very last segment, we wanted to get back to this because it's been a while. This is our Magical Memories segment, and this is how Harry Potter, Hogwarts Radio, or just J.K. Rowling in general has impacted your life. And this week's comes from John Vatney. And John says, "Hello, Hogwarts Radio. I have listened to you for years and have enjoyed each episode. Not knowing of how long an email that you would like for how Harry Potter's impacted you, I went with a thought or two in a few paragraphs for your podcast. Where has the time gone? This is a question you too will ask yourself one day. Until Sorcerer's Stone began production, I knew nothing about Hogwarts, house elves, or the British author building the world so many would escape to over the coming years. My wife, an avid reader, saw my interest in Harry Potter and bought me a copy of Sorcerer's Stone. At the time, I was 31, a dad of one with another on the way. Not the target demographic at the time, but that demographic has changed. Reading the series not only allowed me an escape from the stresses of life and a great adventure, but also struck a chord with feeling grown up that I had all but forgotten. As the kids have grown into middle school age, our family has had countless conversations about the Harry Potter work, themes, and compare the books to the movies, and just about every other detail imaginable. As a parent, Harry Potter has been a subject we talk about as equals, not as a parent teaching to their kids. Thank you for your podcast. Love the show, John." Well, John, thank you very much for sharing with us this week, and it's a good place to call it a stopping point for this episode. We really want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. Once again, I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Pam Beasley.
And we'll see you next time for episode 238. Bye-bye.
That was bloody brilliant.
Codswallop.